Hey, what's up? This is Harry from Harry's Situations, and we're here today with my Ford F-150 that I affectionately call Raymond. So this is a vehicle that I bought in 2013 for Cheap Truck Challenge when I was working at Peterson's Four Wheel and Off-Road magazine. And I'll be honest, at the time I didn't expect to be as fond of this vehicle as I am, or to still have it 8 years later. The only thing it has in common with what it had back then is the MP205 transfer case, which actually has been rebuilt at Axaline. So Axaline has built the Super Duty axles in this thing. They swapped in a ZF5 5-speed. They built the off-road design doubler that uses that 205 with a 203. All the drive lines they built for it too. But I'm getting ahead of myself because there's a lot of other things that happened before those things. Fun fact, Aaron Lechner, owner of Axaline, before he even started the company, it was in his garage that we chopped the fenders out of this thing and we put a 6-inch lift on it in order to fit 42s for Cheap Truck. Otherwise it was stock. It had a poorly running 351 in it, a 4-speed MP435, and the original half-ton axles, high pinion Dana 44 in the front, and a big bearing 9-inch in the back. Now those are good axles, but they're not good if you're running 42s. My 77 F-150 has been upgraded over the years, starting with an engine swap at Nate's Precision. Nate was kind of the brains behind all of the modifications that happened, and he saw the big picture. There's a theme with this truck. It's like a ranch truck, you know, the patina, the pipe bumpers, everything is bare metal, so it's rusted, and I really like that look. That was what I was going for, was an old ranch truck, but with an updated drivetrain underneath. LA Speed built a 460 for this truck that we swapped in with parts from L&L. Pretty easy swap in these old trucks, to be quite honest, and it has Edelbrock heads, an Edelbrock intake manifold, full roller cam. Probably making about 500 horsepower, I'm estimating. I haven't had it on a dyno, but the engine now is topped by Phytech fuel injection. When I first got it, it had a carburetor on it. Never could quite get it to run right. More on-road, actually. It had a Holley Truck Avenger that worked great off-road, but had this dead spot I just couldn't get rid of. So we swapped on fuel injection with my friend B-Rad from B-Rad Customs. As I mentioned, Axaline swapped in a 5-speed, and that really made the truck way more drivable. Having overdrive was huge when I've taken this truck down to Cabo, San Lucas and back with my friend Vern Simons. That was like a 2,300 mile round trip. I drove this truck up to Alaska 2 summers ago with my friend Brian Sumner. That was a 3,000 mile trip that we did for Ultimate Adventure just to get there. And it goes down the road great, surprisingly well. The first thing people notice when they look under the hood is this crazy air filter. So if you've looked in like a semi-truck or a tractor, they have these centrifugal filters that get rid of the big particles before it actually goes through the paper element. And we wanted to recreate that. So Rock Hound made this giant box, and it's got a big honkin' air filter, is the colloquial term for the Donaldson filter that is inside. They're really popular with the Cummins crowd. And then we just got these parts from Summit Racing to connect it all, including the top hat that goes on the Phytech. So this feeds air from behind the grill into this huge box here. Other things worth mentioning, I've got a Moroso catch can because there's a fair amount of blow-by with this motor, and it was getting the valve covers all dirty. Also, we swapped in Super Duty Hydro Boost, not at the same time as we did the axles, but basically the same setup, so it's really well balanced with the Hydro Boost and the master cylinder where you're using. It's like driving a Super Duty with regards to braking. The bad part about Hydro Boost is that it runs off of the steering pump. So between the ram on the axle and the pump, if you were turning and braking, the pump couldn't keep up. But I added a PSC pump, and I'm using their ram. They've rebuilt the steering box and plumbed it for the Hydro Assist. So now that whole system has been upgraded as well. I added a Griffin aluminum radiator to keep the 460 cool. It bolts right in, but it didn't come with a shroud. So my friends at CR Fab, John Connor, made this aluminum shroud. You may recall they did all the tin work in the tracker, and the shroud is just as beautiful as that is. The suspension is extended radius arms in the front that Rock Hound built. They're angled to allow for full steering lock, and then it just uses Deaver leaf springs in the back. I say just, Deaver makes excellent leaf springs, but it's not linked or anything like that. It does use a shackle flip to get the height that was necessary for the 40-inch Nitto Trail Grapplers. And then more recently, we added 3-inch bypass shocks front and rear to it at Rock Hound, and that really helped. It was underdamped in the front before, and the bypass shocks really helped smooth out the ride and allow me to use all the power off-road and go fast, which is a lot of fun in this truck. Shortly after Cheap Truck Challenge, the factory axles were replaced with Super Duty axles that use bigger brakes, bigger ring and pinion. Everything about them is stronger so they can handle the 40-inch tires. And the axles, as I mentioned, were built by Axeline here in Reno, Nevada, and they use Detroit lockers front and rear and 513 gears from Sierra Gear. Now the front has also been upgraded with Dynatrac hubs, Dynatrac knuckles that allow for a high steer, and their ball joints as well. One thing this Ford is not great about is visibility, seeing out of it. You can make up for a lot of things with 40-inch tall tires, but I used to smash the tie rod all the time. And even though it was 1.5 inch 250 wall, I was going through them once a season. Chris Durham built this aluminum tie rod, and it actually is solid, and it'll flex and deflect and go back to its factory shape. And I didn't believe it until I saw it. I had heard about aluminum tie rods flexing and then retaining their original shape, but it wasn't until I was on Ultimate Adventure and saw it in person that I was a believer. Since I added this, I haven't had any issues bending the tie rod. I found that all these upgrades were necessary for the front axle. If I had it to do over again, I would use an 05 Up Super Duty axle that uses way bigger unit bearings, even bigger brakes, and bigger ball joints than this axle has. A lot of upgrades were necessary in order to get this to live reliably with the 40-inch tires. There's more to a truck than just the drivetrain though, of course, and Nate's Precision built an interior cage for my truck that's all TIG welded. It ties into the frame. The sliders are super beefy. They help. These frames on these Fords have a lot of flex, so by tying everything together, it's really made the chassis a lot more rigid. And then the front pipe bumper is actually 6 inches, the rear is 4 inches, and I'm not going to tell you that they're light or practical or have a great approach air departure angle, but they really look the part that I was looking for with this truck. The front bumper holds a Warren 16.5 TI winch, basically the biggest winch Warren makes, and it's wrapped with Masterpool synthetic winch line. Originally, I had the stock bench seat reupholstered with denim, but it really just would bounce you all over the place. So a few years back, before Vern and I took the truck to Mexico, I got some PRPs, and it's like a split bench. So there's a short bench on the passenger side. On the driver's side, it's got a bucket that really holds me in place and works great. I also added Rugged Radio's intercom and race radio, and the headsets are helpful on long trips because you can play your podcast or your music through them, or they really just get rid of the road noise. In the bed of the truck, I've got a box from DZ that holds dual batteries that Rock Hound wired up for me, along with a 20-pound power tank and spare tools and parts. Lockable storage is really nice. Behind that, I've got a 40-inch spare tire, which takes up a lot of the bed in the short bed, and I shove my Bubba rope inside there, and then on top of the tire, I've got some Max Tracks and a Demos shovel that I use a lot for snow and sand wheeling. This truck works amazing in the snow. It's my favorite thing to take out, and the shovel and the max tracks really come in handy, and they are handy and easy to reach where I've got them mounted. When Nate built the cage, we got a bunch of parts from LMC to revamp the interior and make it nice inside again, and that was really a big upgrade. I bought this truck for $1,200 in Gardnerville, Nevada, and I got another set of Dana 44 and 9-inch axles to go with it, which was a screaming deal, but the truck needed a lot of love. It's changed a lot over the years since I first bought it. When Axoline built the MP205, they used an off-road design twin stick kit that allowed me to front dig. This truck is pretty big. It's not the most maneuverable, particularly with the Detroit lockers, which I love the simplicity of, and they're strong. I never have an issue with them, but it does hurt the turning radius, so I can front dig with the twin stick, and that's been really helpful. Out back, Nate's Precision built a custom skid plate for the 30-gallon LMC fuel tank that really gives me a decent amount of range with this truck. You just have to carry a lot of fuel. The mileage is not great on it, but you don't drive a truck with 40-inch tires and a 460 if you're looking for mileage. So hopefully you like my Ford. I certainly do, way more than I expected when I bought it, but it's basically an Ultra4 car with an old retro body on it these days. It's got 3-inch bypass shocks, 40-inch Nitto Trail Grapplers, a big block, a doubler, everything you need for pretty much any situation, well, or at least any situation it fits in. What would you change about the Ford? Comment below and let me know.